So you already had this growing nexus between these three countries. Having said that, actually Iran, although Iran is a major oil supplier to China, and China has billions of dollars invested in the country. I mean, its banks lend there. It's building out the Tehran subway system. It builds dams and highways, the usual sort of Chinese infrastructure play. Having said that, Saudi Arabia, Iran's arch enemy, is by far the more important energy supplier to China.
And, one of the things you point out in your column, Andy, is this notion of the pivot that the Obama administration made to Asia back in the day. It seems like a long time ago. It actually wasn't that long ago. And that is how many have been proceeding in terms of U.S. foreign policy and ultimately U.S. economic policy. What does this latest turn, as it were, do to that?
Right. Well, look, China is by no means unhappy to see the United States bogged down in more conflict in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, it sees this as a strategic opportunity. Remember Obama's pivot to Asia. This was his big geostrategic play. Having poured U.S. blood and treasure into the Middle East, the idea was we now need to focus on a part of the world that will be the nexus, the real hub of the 21st century economy, which is East Asia. And his pivot had a decidedly militaristic flavor. Don't forget, it was announced by then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on the deck of a warship anchored in Manila Bay.
What's interesting is, and you're right, that the U.S.-Iran flare-up will work to Beijing's advantage from a geopolitical perspective. There are flare-ups and then there's instability. And I do wonder about, there's a point where if Iran becomes so unstable, that's problematic for China, in terms of its longer-term ambitions.
Sure, it's problematic for China. I mean, the spike in oil prices would be problematic for China, given that it's the world's largest oil importer. And it's already, the economy is already in trouble as a result of slowing industrial growth and investment and so on.
What about in terms of, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, which is even more important to China. I do wonder about that trifecta of China, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. That's a complicated relationship, potentially.
All these relationships in the Middle East are incredibly complicated, which is why that would argue for China to actually be extremely cautious. And so what you're seeing, big picture, for now, China is stepping back. It does not want to get engaged in this fight.
All right, so we can't have you in the studio with asking you about the trade war and the trade negotiations between the U.S. and China. Where are we? Phase one, it looks like January 15th will be some sort of day that we mark with a signing, a potential meeting upcoming between Presidents Trump and Xi. But where are we in terms of the next phase, I dare say, of these agreements?
And does Iran kind of complicate this?
Look, President Trump is going to be very much distracted by Iran for the foreseeable future. I mean, this really puts the trade agreement into perspective. This was never a very important trade agreement. I mean, this was President Trump listening to his economic advisors saying, you've got to do something, you've got to get some kind of a truce here ahead of the elections, right? We can't have the U.S. economy tanking just while you're seeking re-election. That's what this deal is all about. This was phase one. So it's essentially a purchasing agreement, soybeans and so on, with a little bit of intellectual property protection thrown in. The next phase, which is supposedly to address these big issues.
Intellectual property.
Chinese subsidies to state enterprises, forced technology transfers, all of these things which have been put on the back burner. Trump was tweeting a few weeks ago, I'm going to go to China and kickstart phase two negotiations with Iran. As it is now, I would have thought that timetable has been significantly delayed.
All right. Great context as always. We love having you here. Andy Brown, editorial director of Bloomberg New Economy. Coming up, speaking of economies and economics, we're going to look at Bloomberg economics.
We're going to talk about it. It's a big week. We get that jobs report come Friday, so that's something we're focusing on. And then we're also focusing on the trials and tribulations of Carlos Ghosn and his great escape. So that's coming up on Bloomberg Radio. I'm Carol Master along with Jason Kelly right here on Bloomberg.
Chilly January days are tough enough without a broken boiler. Keep your home warm and working this winter with 2 years interest-free credit and your boiler installed by one of our expert engineers. Plus, you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And we can even quote by video call after work or on weekends. Get a quote by the 29th of February, and you can also get £200 off a new boiler, or £400 off for our existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three, it's up and in!
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading. We have got stocks now trading mixed. Been that kind of a day with the Dow swinging between gains and losses. Right now, looking at a 5-point drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, down by just about 0.1%. But both the S&P 500 Index and NASDAQ, they are both pushing higher. Bottom line, little changed on the S&P, up 5 now. That is a gain of just about 0.2%. NASDAQ higher as well. It is up by 29 points, a gain for NASDAQ of about 0.3%. S&P 500 Index pushing higher after erasing an earlier slide, gaining for the third time in 4 sessions. Amazon and Google parent Alphabet pacing the advance as investors weigh rising tensions in the Middle East against the strength of the U.S. economy. Bill Dudley is a former New York Fed president, now a senior research scholar at Princeton University, and on Bloomberg Television this morning, he talked about markets and Middle Eastern tensions.
Well, it could cause some uncertainty about, for example, what's going to happen to energy prices. Mm-hmm. I think generally, though, the bigger uncertainty that's been affecting the economy over the last year or two has been the uncertainty on trade policy. And that uncertainty on trade policy has lessened a bit as we're moving towards an interim deal with China.
Smile Direct shares are rallying now by 23.3% after announcing a new line of oral care products exclusively at Walmart. And Roku has unveiled a new program for third-party audio equipment developers in an effort to win over consumers by targeting the setup process between its video streaming platform and customers' choice of soundbar products. Roku shares are up now by 4.5%. 10-year is down 6/30 seconds, yield now 1.81%. Crude oil advancing. West Texas Intermediate up 0.3%. WTI 63.21 a barrel. Brent 68.82, a gain for Brent of just about 0.3%. And gold higher by 0.8%, 15.64 the ounce. So again, recapping, the Dow lower now by 3 points. S&P higher by 5. That is a gain of 0.2%. Nasdaq up now by 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
And this portion of Bloomberg Business Week, it is brought to you by Interactive Brokers. Their margin loans start at 3.06% and decrease for larger loan values. Rate subject to change. Learn more at ibkr.com/compare. Let's do a little bit of Business Week economics now. The Dream Team is here. Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg, and Carl Riccadonna, Chief U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics, here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. Welcome to you both. Kathleen, what's happening with the bond market today?
Well, the bond market, we got a mic on, don't we? That's always helpful. Yeah, bond market's just pulling back a bit from the risk-off safe haven trade that we saw after the attack on the Iranian general that was the whole world reacted. It started in the U.S., it carried over into Asia overnight in this latest trading session. This is obviously the Monday here, but it was Monday yesterday in Asia. But now I think the market's there's been the first reaction. You sell first, you buy first, and then you see where things are going next. And right now, no one knows where things are going next. So stocks are kind of mixed. You can see the 10-year note, as Charlie just said, it's down about 6/30 seconds, yields at 1.809. It got as low as 1.77%, maybe even lower as people were buying treasuries. The benchmark 30-year back up to 2.28, losing about 3/4 of a point. And I think for now, that's mostly what it is, what happens next. Now, this week, of course, there's going to be a lot for the bond market to at because we've got 4 Fed speakers. On Friday, we've got Rich Clara, the vice chair, John Williams, who's the president of the New York Fed, Jim Bullard, very closely listened to.
Chatty little bunch this week.
Fed president from St. Louis, and Charlie Evans from Chicago. Big jobs report on Friday.
Right.
But for now, I think what's happening in the Middle East is still a big factor, but until something else happens, until we get more reaction maybe globally, I think the bond market's done for now.
Carl Riccadonna, come on in because we kicked off our show. We caught up with, I think John Authors, but in general, we've been talking a little bit about how all of a sudden, I think at the top of our broadcast, how all of a sudden now we're talking about the possibility of the Fed cutting rates.
Sure. Well,
and we're seeing it certainly on the work function on the terminal, but I just wonder what kind of conversations are you guys having on your team?
The hurdle is absolutely high for the Fed to be tightening policy, especially ahead of the election in November. So the talk is either they're on hold or they have to cut further if the economy starts to deteriorate, and we're nowhere near that level. So again, as Kathleen highlighted, there's tremendous uncertainty out there. We're not sure about the geopolitical situation here, but one thing we can watch very closely is oil prices. And so if I look at West Texas, I'm at about 63 and change per barrel currently, which is just basically where the highs were in 2019. So 64 is kind of the magic number. If we breach 64, now we're suddenly surpassing the 12-month high, which could mean that then suddenly oil is moving into shock territory, which would have macroeconomic significance. We're certainly not there yet. But again, we haven't seen what the retaliation from Tehran is actually going to look like. If we start getting towards $85 per barrel, then you start moving the needle on GDP. And really the lens we have to focus on here is the impact on consumer spending, right? There's not been a lot, not a diverse, broad-based contribution to economic growth. Business investment has been stalled. Trade is not doing much. Government spending is doing only a very little bit to lift growth. So really, if we want to understand how potentially geopolitics translate into a U.S. economy, a domestic economy, which is swooning, it's really through the lens of that energy tax on consumption. And consumption was pretty good in the fourth quarter of the year. But if you see rising gasoline prices extracting a toll from consumers in either sentiment or actual spending power, that would be the type of scenario which would start to get us concerned.
Because that impacts most Americans, right, when it comes to gas prices, right? And filling up at the pump. And then if you're paying more at the pump, you've got less to spend elsewhere.
Right. And get your sunglasses out and your tennis shorts because it's going to be 60 degrees plus in New York this weekend. And I highlight that for the reason that if we're looking at much smaller utility bills from households, that is money in the pocket of consumers. And so a mild winter, at least on the East Coast, which is densely populated, could actually further buttress consumers against that type of shock.
Okay, but let's just remember there's a lot of big
prices.
ifs about what's going to happen. There's a lot of big ifs about what's going to happen with oil. And so far, oil has not jumped above the magic level of $70 bucks a barrel on Brent. So I think it's a long way from the Fed responding to anything like that.
Absolutely.
I think there's already been some people who are arguing we would get a rate cut this year. So yeah, any extra added tension geopolitically could add to that. But far more powerful, the jobs report in the near term, I think, this Friday. The survey is looking on from Bloomberg for a slowdown to 160. 160,000 is not bad, but the prior number was 266,000. I would submit to you that right now the Fed is already priced for weak manufacturing. They're already priced for things not to turn around immediately, the trade deal. But I think if the jobs report shows any signs of getting softer, I think that's the kind of thing that does incline the Fed more towards addressing what most already say. They're not so worried about having to hike rates. They're much more sitting now wondering if they're going to have to cut rates.
Right. And they pulled that hurdle up pretty hard at the last meeting, though, signaling that they really want to be firmly perched where they currently stand for 2020. They don't want to be tinkering with interest rates ahead of the election. And what's interesting, if we look back to past election cycles, what the Fed is doing in the first half of the year, let's say what they're doing on Memorial Day, is typically what they're doing on Election Day as well. So if they are on hold, they will stay on hold unless there's some real dramatic deterioration in the economy.
Right. Something can make them do something
So
if
they
have
could
to.
be pushed into action, absolutely.
Right.
But our baseline forecast is 2020 GDP growth of 2%. The Fed's on hold. Inflation maybe grinding slightly higher. And an unemployment rate, that's the other part of Friday's report, at 3.3% by the end of this year compared to 3.5 currently.
So nothing to see here, folks. Just move along. Move along.
And that's just the way the Fed wants it.
There you go.
But
All
stay
right.
tuned. You never know.
You never know. You never know. We know that to be true. All right. Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg. Carl Riccadonna, Chief U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics. Thank you both so much. Coming up, it's going to be a movie at some point. No doubt about it. The Escape of
Netflix
Carlos
is bidding,
Ghosn.
Amazon is bidding,
Yeah.
you name it.
They probably won't win a Golden Globe, though.
Who knows?
There you go. You don't know.
We're talking about Carlos Ghosn, once a revered and respected auto executive and now a fugitive on the run. Who would have thought?
Matt Campbell from Lebanon. First, let's get to Bob Moon. He's got your world national headlines. Hey, Bob.
And thank you very much. Well, we currently have Harvey Weinstein being charged with new sexual assault charges in Los Angeles. And let's bring you up to date on that and other stories at this hour. He didn't name any specific countries or world leaders, but when UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres spoke today of the risk of miscalculation that's been created by making unpredicted decisions with unpredictable consequences, he made his mission clear, putting the U.S. and Iran, pulling them back from the brink of war.
Stop escalation. Exercise maximum restraint. Restart dialogue. Renew international cooperation. Let us not forget the terrible human suffering caused by war.
President Trump has threatened airstrikes inside Iran if that country retaliates for the U.S. airstrike in Baghdad that killed the Islamic Republic's leading military general. He is accused, not convicted, so says Harvey Weinstein's lawyer, with his trial on sexual assault charges in the process of getting underway in New York. He was met outside a New York courthouse by multiple accusers, including Rosanna Arquette, proclaiming him a sexual predator. Weinstein's attorney, Donna Rotuno, says the 67-year-old ex-movie producer deserves fair treatment. In Los Angeles County, authorities charged Weinstein today with 2 new counts of rape and sexual assault. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
1858. The first transatlantic cable brings news of Europe.
We have the US tariffs on European goods. Would you be standing ready to buy UK domestic stocks now?
It works for 3 weeks. Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
You are expecting an end to uncertainty.
It works every time.
What are you looking for in the event of a deal?
There are a confluence of factors.
Weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Some ideas can be bad for business, like a band recording a song underwater. No radio station would ever play that song. Or like Barclaycard, making a repayment calculator that shows how a small extra repayment each month adds up to paying them much less in interest. But Barclaycard have actually made their repayment calculator, so you should definitely use it. Take control. Start today. Barclaycard. Terms and conditions apply.
Cutting for the net. Scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn. We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. What? With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown. Again.
Search NFL today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 43 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all holding on to their gains. Let's head right over to the first word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. Main U.S. averages are trading well off their opening lows. Dow's currently up 11 points, was down 216. S&Ps are higher by 7, while the NASDAQ climbs by 36. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.81%. Gold is trading higher by 13. Small caps are a little changed, and 8 of the main 11 S&P sectors are trading higher, led by gains in energy and telecom. Only industrials, materials, and financials fell. Now, biotechs gain 25 points. Transports fall 90. Semis decline 1.1%, and the VIX is also little changed. Leaders to the upside on the Dow, ExxonMobil, and McDonald's, while Disney and American Express led to the downside. In deal news, Yum Brands to buy Habit restaurants for $14 a share. And in other news, Pier 1 is said to have drafted a bankruptcy plan. Wrapping things up, Google hit a record high after shares were upgraded over at Pivotal. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
All right, we thank you very much, Bill Maloney. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK on your Bloomberg. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Jason and I keep talking about how this story increasingly playing out like fiction, twists and turns, not to mention the latest involving trains, planes, and audacity, marking the great escape of former revered auto executive Carlos Ghosn. Here with what went into that escape and what's to come. Joining us is Matthew Campbell, senior reporter at Bloomberg News. He's on the phone in Beirut, Lebanon, along with Jill Weber, Bloomberg Business Week editor, in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio right here in New York City. Matt, so glad to have you here with us. You're smack in the middle of it all. This escape, months in the making, lots of planning, and still we're going to hear from the key character later this week.
That's right, Carol. So Carlos Ghosn is now safely in Lebanon, a country where he spent most of his adolescence. We are expecting he will give some kind of press conference on Wednesday where he will break the silence he's maintained ever since he arrived here just before New Year's. And really, all eyes are going to be on what he has to say, which could be pretty dramatic.
So, Matt, everything over the last week has been dramatic, to say the least. And your story that's out today, I think, does a pretty amazing job of tying up all the various threads that we've known out there. What are some of the more startling ones to you that you have in your story?
Well, we now have a pretty solid picture of how Ghosn was able to escape what appeared to be a very comprehensive net of surveillance of his movements in Japan, somehow find his way to an airport, somehow get his way onto an airplane, and then make it to Lebanon. He had a significant amount of help, notably from a guy called Michael Taylor, former Green Beret, who specializes in this kind of covert operation. Another man called Georges Antoine Zayek, who was a veteran of the Lebanese Civil War, was also involved. So bit by bit, we are figuring out just how he was able to do this. And it is really an incredible story, but one where he took an enormous risk trying to escape Japan. Had he been caught, he would certainly have gone right back to jail. But it did pay off for him.
And so, Matt, help help us understand what it's like on the ground there in terms of what the Lebanese are saying about this. This is a guy who ended up on a postage stamp at some point, right, in Lebanon. As you say, he dates back to his adolescence there. What are the Lebanese saying about their role in all of this going forward?
Well, there has been, Jason, a series of reactions. There's no question that Ghosn is a very prominent, very celebrated member of Lebanon's business community. People are proud of him, particularly in the Lebanese Christian community, which is where he's from. There is, that said, the government has been quite careful to not indicate in any way that it sponsored or assisted in this escape, which could, of course, lead to some serious diplomatic blowback from Japan, were the Lebanese government demonstrated to have played some kind of role. So for politicians here, it is a tricky balancing act of both welcoming back this favorite son, but also not necessarily endorsing his actions. And beyond that, of course, this is just the biggest story in town. As you can imagine, there are huge crowds of reporters from Japan camped out outside the building where Ghosn is believed to be staying.
Which one of the is noteworthy also because it's a building that is owned by Nissan still.
Yes, which is remarkable. So among the many strange entanglements here is that Ghosn appears and his wife appear to be in a residence paid for and owned by Nissan, where there has been an ongoing legal dispute about their ability to use that residence. So this is going to just run and run and run. And so even though the story is about a year old, it has quite a long way to go.
So I want to go back to the dramatic escape because I felt like you guys got some details about how he actually got from Tokyo to Lebanon that are noteworthy. One being that there was a train that was actually used. I mean, everybody has been reporting that it was just a plane, but you guys revealed that there was also a train ride.
Indeed, Joel. So what seems to have happened is that Ghosn left his home in Tokyo, and rather than being smuggled in the base of the wheelbase of a truck or some other bit of spycraft, he appears to have just gotten on a bullet train to Osaka and gone from there on to Osaka International Airport. So he was in some ways hiding in plain sight, going about what would have been, if not a normal day, certainly something he was allowed to do. He was allowed to travel within Japan. And so right up until the moment when he reached the airport, he could have said, if challenged, that he was just going down to Osaka for the day.
Right. Amazing. And then he was indeed smuggled as baggage. So many great details in this story. We know we're going to be talking with you and eager for your reporting throughout the week. Matt Campbell, senior reporter for Bloomberg News, joining us on the phone from Beirut. And that is where Carlos Ghosn currently is. We expect to hear from Carlos Ghosn later this week. As Matt Campbell said, our to Joel Weber, the editor of Bloomberg Business Week. He was here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio.
Every time I read this story, I just think about all the times that,
I kept saying WOA as this was coming out in your absence.
I've talked to him a couple times over the years. I mean, this was somebody you wanted to, anything in the auto industry you wanted to talk to. So it's just staggering to get your head around it. All right, coming up, folks, we're going to get the chart of the day. We're also going to have someone, our own Leslie Patton, explain why Taco Bell is adding burgers to its menu.
Yeah, didn't see that one coming.
Talk about WOA. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are mixed to higher in the final hour. Selling pressure faded as investors weighed tensions in the Middle East against the strength of the U.S. economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 3. The S&P 500 up 5. The Nasdaq Composite is up 29. Smile Direct Club shareholders are all smiles today. You would be too if your stock was up nearly 22%. The company unveiled a line of oral care products to be sold only at Walmart. Topgolf may be teeing up an initial public offering. Sources say the driving range operator is working with banks on an IPO that could value the company at about $4 billion. The offering could come as soon as this year. Xerox has lined up $24 billion in financing as it continues its pursuit of HP. It is the largest ever bridge loan in the tech sector, according to Bloomberg data. HP has rejected Xerox's advances and questioned whether it could finance a deal. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast. How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team? Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today. Hear every play of the NFL playoffs live with the NFL on TuneIn Premium. The divisional round kicks off Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern when the Vikings travel cross country to take on the 49ers in an NFC showdown in Santa Clara. The action continues at 8:15 as the Ravens host the Tennessee Titans in Baltimore. On Sunday, listen live beginning at 3:05 Eastern as the Texans and Chiefs square off in Kansas City, followed by the Seahawks and Packers at 6:40 in Green Bay. The excitement of the NFL playoffs is on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So coming up, let's head over to Taco Bell, grab a burger.
What?
Wait, what? Yeah, it doesn't even make sense. And yet, it's happening. We're going to get into that, plus the chart of the day in just a minute.
Yeah, all right, get to that in just a moment. First up, back to your top business stories. A look at trading 29 minutes to go. Charlie, tell us.
Indeed, absolutely right about that, Carol Master. We've got Yum Brand shares. That's the parent of Taco Bell. Lower right now by 0.2%. Stocks, they're trading mixed with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down just about 2 points right now. Little change there. Dow Industrials, as I mentioned, on the minus side, but the S&P, NASDAQ, both higher, holding on to their gains. One more note about the Dow. The worst level of the day today, we did have the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 200 points. S&P up 5, now a gain of 0.2%. NASDAQ up 31 for NASDAQ. That is an advance right now of just about 0.4%. Amazon and Google parent Alphabet pacing the advance as investors look past geopolitical tensions and toward the resilience of the U.S. economy. James Bevan is Chief Investment Officer at CCLA Investment Management. He was interviewed earlier today right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, I certainly anticipate that we could see another correction, but my expectation is that if this is correction, it would be the 66th correction that we've had since the S&P 500 began its bull run in early 2009. My expectation is that that would then give way to another charge higher.
The 10-year down 430 seconds, yield 1.80%. We've got gold up 0.9%, 15.66 the ounce. Sam West Texas Intermediate crude lower by 0.2%, 62.93 a barrel. Brent crude is at 68.50. Brent down by 0.2%. Trading halt right now for shares of Pier 1 Imports. Sources tell Bloomberg it's planning to dismiss about 40% of its headquarters staff, roughly 300 people, and is canceling orders as it works to overhaul the troubled business. Pier 1 lower today by 16.9%. Recapping stocks mixed, S&P up 4, up 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Little by little, time goes. Little by little.
Something from the 80s. I feel like it was probably in one of those teen movies.
Might have been.
Okay. Who is
a little hint?
You know, if I gave you a hint.
Is it a well-known voice?
Absolutely.
It's not.
Best known for the band that he was in.
I was going to say, is that Robert Plant?
Indeed it is. Carol, you win.
You, Carol
Way to
Master.
go. Smoking Jason Kelly on that one. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
2020, it's a new year.
It's a new year. You're coming in hot.
Absolutely.
So what do you got for us in terms of the chart?
You know, when you think little in the stock market, you're referring to small cap stocks. And what I'm referring to in this particular case is small cap technology stocks, because it's an area that Jim Paulson looked at the other day. He's the chief investment strategist over at Luthold Group, and he was making a comparison between the valuation of these smaller companies in the S&P Small Cap 600 Technology Index with their larger peers. Think FANGs with 2 A's, as he put it, you know, Alphabet and, well, that's the G, but, you know, Amazon and Apple together with Facebook and Netflix and the aforementioned Alphabet. In any case, what he looked at specifically were forward price earnings ratios. So prices relative to projected earnings. And when you run the numbers, you find out that the smaller companies have generally been cheaper the past couple of years, but just within, you know, the past couple of weeks, they got to the lowest level in relative terms since January 2001. Now, they rebounded a bit last week, but last time I looked today, they're headed back toward the lows. Now, trying to invest in these smaller companies may be the challenge. I mean, I've had a couple of email subscribers ask, well, how do you do that? It's kind of difficult. There's one exchange-traded fund. The ticker is PSCT. It doesn't quite track the small cap 600. It tracks a version of it. In any case, I mean, it's something to watch. If nothing else. If you're looking for cheap sex stocks, think small. That's what it comes down to. And if you want to see this chart, send me an email. I'll get it to you along with everything I do going forward. The address, dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
All right, David Wilson, thank you so much. I call this a wait what moment. Taco Bell adding burgers, Jason Kelly?
Yeah, Yum Brands, of course, the owner of Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC, adding hamburgers to the lineup, a $375 million deal to buy Habit Restaurants that's based out in Cali. Leslie Patton, she joins us from Chicago with the story. So what's going on here? We're going to be buying burgers and tacos together? I mean, it doesn't sound bad to me.
Sure. Good afternoon. So it sounds like for Yum, this is pretty small potatoes at first. I mean, this restaurant chain has less than 300 locations. Yum Brands has 40-some thousand. So, it's not going to move the needle, not anytime soon. That being said, they are getting into like a new category. This is considered more fast casual, a little more upscale, and obviously burgers.
Yeah, this is right. Yum Brands is almost a $31 billion market cap, right? So this is a really small deal, but it does, I wonder what it says about longer term, maybe, Leslie, that Yum wants to kind of expand into.
And go a little higher end, it feels like, too, right?
Yeah.
Well, and with the CEO's willingness increasingly to maybe look at some of this stuff a little more seriously and take M&A, maybe to the next level for the company. They have been a little more aggressive over the last few years. They have, they have a stake in Grubhub now, for example.
And so, Leslie, what does this tell us about the consumer and his and her appetite for, that sort of quick meal?
Sure. So I think, that is always going to be there, that quick meal appetite. People want stuff, convenience more and more. And some people are scaling up and want something maybe a little healthier, something they see as higher end. But at the same time, discounts and value still rule with quite a bit of the population. If you have something that's just a little bit cheaper at one place, that is going to be a huge factor for a lot of people still.
What do you think is going to be one of the interesting or more interesting trends when it comes to restaurants, Leslie, in 2020? Just got about 30 seconds here.
Oh, sure. So looking at, it'll be interesting to see what happens with all the faux meat stuff, right? So the Impossibles, the Beyond, who's going to bring it on? Who's going to say no? Who's going to do their own? I think that's something to definitely watch this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are reminded of that. Catching up with Ethan Brown over at Beyond Meat ahead of the Bloomberg 50. All right, Leslie Patton, thank you so much. Keeping us honest on the consumer and all things fast food. On the phone from our Chicago bureau. Coming up.
Well, you do wonder, I just want to say, Yum Brands, by making this, even though it's a small acquisition, maybe they learn, something different about, right? And it helps them in their bigger, broader businesses. And I think that's what this is all about. It's like a big
tuna burgers, anyone?
Hey, actually, you might be onto something.
Exactly. You're into that.
All right. Coming up, we're going to take a look at the markets, catch it down to the closing bell. Right now, those equity averages, they're at their highs of the session.
Let's get over to Bob Moon. He's got your world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, the House of Representatives votes this week on a resolution limiting President Trump's potential military actions against Iran. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports.
Secretary of Defense Mark Esper will conduct a closed briefing for members of Congress on Iran. Tom Donilon, a former White House National Security Advisor, indicated he's likely to be asked how the killing of an Iranian general fits into overall Middle East strategy.
The president had articulated a strategy of trying to pull back from the Middle East, but the moves he makes here obviously show us becoming more deeply enmeshed in the Middle East. I don't think at this point that President Trump or the Iranians are interested in a direct major military conflict, but that is an increased risk.
Donilon said in a Bloomberg interview he's also concerned about the disruption to Iraq's political system. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Just when Harvey Weinstein and his legal team are gearing up to defend him against sexual assault charges in New York, Los Angeles prosecutors announced today they filed 2 new sex crime charges against the disgraced former movie mogul. Outside the New York courthouse, actress Rosanna Arquette offered her support to the women set to testify.
As one of the silence breakers, I stand in solidarity with the brave survivors who will take the stand against Harvey Weinstein in this trial. While the emotion of the day runs high, I join these other brave women who were also harmed by Harvey Weinstein to say, we aren't going anywhere.
Weinstein's attorney complained that Arquette spoke of him as a sexual predator even before he faces trial and a verdict is rendered. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down. Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
Step back deep three is SEI's Investment Manager Services.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continue.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home.
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium, from regular season action to the game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average at or near the best level of the day right now, up 25 points. Keep in mind that at the worst level of the day, we had seen the Dow Jones Industrial Average falling by more than 200 points. So again, now a gain of 0.1%. Worth repeating, we've got the Dow up by 25 points. S&P 500 index higher by 8. That's at a gain of just about 0.3%. NASDAQ been higher for most of the day, up now by just about 0.5% now on NASDAQ. It is up now by 41 points. So stocks advanced as heavyweight technology companies lead a rebound. Treasuries and the dollar dropped. The 10-year down 4/32 yield right now 1.80%. Gold up 0.9%, $15.65 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.5%, $62.76 a barrel. Brent, the global benchmark, at 68.34, lower now by 0.4%. So again, recapping, the Dow up 26 points, up the best level of the day right now, up by 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the drive to the close. Henley Smith is back with us, Senior Relationship Manager at New York-based, Stonecastle Cash Management.
Stands for New York. NYC, hey, some people call it.
Be kind. That's what Tom Hanks says. Be kind.
That's right.
Which has $17 billion in assets under management. And Ellen, be kind. He joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. I just think it's a great mantra for 2020.
It is.
I'm going to get a little fuzzy and warm and fuzzy on you.
Well, again, I think our little sliver of certainty kind of evaporated. But being kind can be great. But it felt good while it lasted.
What changed based on a lot changed, certainly geopolitically. But when you, as an investor, what changed?
Well, I think coming up into the end of the year, everything was falling into place. Trade, everything was falling into place. And all of a sudden it was kind of ripped away from us, which I think is kind of a statement on management by chaos, if I will say. So I've been in that situation before, but it remains to be seen. Is it going to evaporate or is it going to come back? Hopefully it'll come back.
Well, because what's so interesting is, we saw the market really take a dip on Friday, and yet we come in here, we're in the red to start the day, but we look like we're going to end, if it holds right here, with the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ all up. The NASDAQ up 0.5%.
Yeah, well, let's hope cooler heads prevail in this situation. We know it's a difficult situation, but back to the economics. Again, I think things have been falling into place, and that's a good thing, and you've seen that.
Well, and what's interesting is I was listening to Bloomberg Surveillance this morning, and I think our Gina Martin Adams was on, and just talking about corporate earnings that are to come, and our comparisons are going to be easier, correct? Especially when we get into the second half of I think, this year.
Yeah,
so I do wonder, when you look at corporate earnings, what should we be looking for that says, okay, things are actually better than maybe everybody thought they would be?
Well, I can think just that. But I think we've been through a lot this last year from, the pivot that we went through this time last year. It remains to be, I think, to remind everybody, this time last year was a very different situation. We were looking at definitely 3% funds target, a 4% 10-year note. Everyone was wrong about that one. Mm-hmm. So I think we're dealing with a long cycle. It's the end of the cycle. We're dealing with an inverted yield curve for most of the year.
Do we not really know what's going to happen? John Authors was on from Bloomberg Markets and just saying that we really don't have any great era in past history, because we don't go through these big macro cycles very often.
Well, I think that's the case. I think it's just a function of where we've been for the last 10 years. We've been dealing with manipulated markets, with QE, with a low funds target, with zero interest rate policy. And that, I think, what you saw back in September when the repo facilities started to go haywire, I think we're just trying to figure out where we should be relative to where we've been. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult thing. We're dealing with uncertain ground. And I would say, as we've talked about before, it's a great time to be a trader. It's probably the smartest time to be a long-term investor. But as a portfolio manager, you're dealing with uncertain ground and things that used to be, you could say, if A and B happen, then pretty much C is going to happen. That doesn't happen anymore. So I think what we've seen specifically in our business as cash as an allocation, a valuable allocation, continues to grow. And I think that's going to be what you're going to see in 2020. Cash as an allocation and portfolio will continue to grow. It will continue to be a very valuable one, especially where you see high net worth individuals, family offices. You're seeing cash continue to build. In the corporate institutional space, we've seen that as well. And again, as we've talked about before, cash, which usually is kind of a, no pun intended, default investment, is one that you have to pay attention to, one that takes some time to understand, because there's a lot of choice out there, and you want to make the right choice, especially at this particular time.
But how much do you worry about having another year like last year, where you'd sort of, to use a technical term, feel like a bit of a sucker if you had too much in cash as the equity markets just raged on through 19?
Well, I think that's probably what you'll see, some kind of, the wall of worry that will continue to climb. I think that, again, just what my sense is, again, you're going into an election year, you think it'll be a good year for stocks, a good year for the economy because of that. But again, the political rhetoric, as we all know, is going to intensify. And I think a lot of people look at presidential elections and look at after presidential elections, and I think that's what a lot of people are planning for.
So where do you put money? Where do you put, you say there's a lot of cash sitting out there, and you say obviously you've got to be very smart about where you kind of allocate that cash. Where do you put it?
Well,
where would you in this environment?
Yeah, I'm one to be in an insured product, insured deposit product. Those are things that are getting a lot more play these days, where you're seeing FDIC insured. Obviously, where people have been traditionally have been in Treasury money market funds, but we know that the Fed is buying a lot of Treasury bills. In fact, they've announced that they're buying $60 billion, but we all know that it's more than that. And I think
it sounds so risk off.
Yeah, it does, and we know that program's ending this time. We think sometime this quarter. So I think money market funds could see a little bit of a hiccup. Those, especially that use repurchase agreements, I would be very careful with. So what we're recommending to your clients is high quality deposits that are insured and with banks that you feel comfortable with.
But that to me sounds so risk off.
Yes, I think so. That's very risk off, I think. But for me, it's more, let's be flexible. I might be giving up a little bit. We had a great year. No one expected the year in 19.
I was thinking about that. Why not? If you had 2 consecutive years of 10% gains, you'd be very happy.
Sure.
Right? And here we had 1 year over 20%. So why not just put it on the side, right? Or put a lot to the side and just wait and see what happens.
And I think you're seeing that. I think a lot of people are starting to take a little bit off the table. We've had a great year. I'm gonna cash out a little bit. I might be wrong going into the end of the year. I might be giving up a little bit, but coming out of that, going into 2021, I'm going to feel comfortable that I have the market flexibility and the liquidity there that I need.
All right, Henley Smith, great to see you, Senior Relationship Manager, Stonecastle Cash Management. They look after about $17 billion. He was here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio, and it looks like we are going to hold those gains through the close. The Dow had sort of been the outlier, Carol. The S&P and the NASDAQ had pretty much been in the green for a lot of the sessions, certainly since we've come on air a couple hours ago. The Dow looking like it's going to eke out a gain.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's kind of interesting is I feel like we've had another leg up in the last half hour or so. So we've seen some of the upward momentum heading into the close, which is a lot of technicians or market watchers would say that is certainly a positive sign. But it's only Monday, everybody.
It is. That's true. And very early in the year as well. So we're going to take a look at the movers and shakers of this Monday trade coming up. The market's going to close in about 3.5 minutes. So we'll bring you that. We're going to head out to Vegas and lots more to come here. It's a 4-hour edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Coffee.
Boredom. Fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Run. Skip. Run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up. Lift. Mix it up. Run. Lift. Splash. Skip. Lift. Run. It's crunch time. Skip. Mix it up. Run. Mix it up. Add a boxing class. Skip. Run. Splash. Skip. Run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing in January. T's and C's apply. Run. Mix it up. Skip. Mix it. Run. Mix it.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Hello, I'm Nat Coombs from ESPN's The Nat Coombs Show, which admittedly is 1 out of 10 for original podcast name, but 10 out of 10 for NFL chat. Every week, we're dropping 4 episodes with an all-pro lineup of terrific guests, journalists, comedians, players, coaches, you name it, all getting you up to speed with everything gridiron. The Nat Coombs Show, American football, British accent. Add to your favorites and listen on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Stocks rallied decisively right into the close. An update to the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. Stocks closing at the best level of the session. 68-point gain for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, up 0.2%. Folks from Catalan, by the way, ringing that closing bell. S&P up 11 at the close, up 0.4%. Dow Industrials, as I mentioned, up 68. NASDAQ higher by 50. That was was a gain of 0.6%. So stocks advanced as heavyweight technology companies led today's rebound. Treasuries and the dollar dropped. The 10-year down 5/32 with a yield of 1.80%. Gold up 0.9%, $15.65 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.4%, $62.83 a barrel. Brent at $68.43, a drop there of 0.3%. So the S&P 500 index pushing higher after erasing an earlier slide, heading for its third gain in 4 sessions. Amazon and Google parent Alphabet pacing the advance as investors look past geopolitical tensions and toward the resilience of the U.S. economy. Alphabet shares up today by 2.5%. Among other tech names, Apple was up 0.8%. Facebook rallied by 1.9%. As for the overall market backdrop, Henley Smith is relationship manager at Stone Castle Cash Management. He was our guest right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
It's a great time to be a trader. It's probably the smartest time to be a long-term investor. But as a portfolio manager, you're dealing with uncertain ground and things that used to be, you could say, if A and B happen, then pretty much C is going to happen. That doesn't happen anymore.
One of today's big winners, Smile Direct Club. Shares rallied just about up 21.6% after announcing a new line of oral care products exclusively at Walmart. Again, recapping stocks higher, S&P 500 index rallying into the close, up 11, a gain there of 0.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing, think you move me. I got a few moves I know you'll like. Shake it through thing, yeah, yeah. Oh, come on, shake him, must just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shake it all over.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
It is time to take a look at some of the winners and losers for the first trading day of the week. I'm Carol Master along with Jason Kelly in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. S&P 500, Charlie mentioning that we finished pretty much at our best levels of the day on those equity averages. So what does it mean for the S&P 500? 273 names higher today, 230 lower, 2 unchanged. And what are you watching?
You know, I was looking at Salesforce,
yeah.
spiking to a record. Analysts reiterating their positive views on the 2020 prospects there. One analyst over at RBC Capital Markets upgrading the stock and saying that it has, quote, significant upside potential in 2020, also raising its price target to a street high view of $215 a share. They had been at $200. It's at $173.45. That's where it closed today. So that name finishing up 4.4%, your third best performer in the S&P, amid a lot of pretty good performance, as you say.
So I want to mention the world's biggest maker of jewelry, Pandora. You probably know, you see their shops in malls and so on. They added roughly a tenth to its market value today after reassuring investors, it would reach the upper end of its profit forecast for 2019. So at their high, up about 13.5%, settling, though, just below that at 12.8%. So it was about $1.40 higher on the day to $12.28 a share. So it's a Copenhagen. Copenhagen-based company released some preliminary figures ahead of its February 4th annual results. I'll get that out. And it now is looking for about a profit margin for 2019 to be in the higher end of its previously guided range of 26 to 27%. Copenhagen. Let's all say it together.
Yeah, you can do it.
I can do it.
You can absolutely do it. By the way, we have 2 more hours of this show, so just buckle up.
Oh, my God. Okay, so what else are you watching?
Watching a little bit of Under Armour. JP Morgan resuming coverage there at neutral. That's not a great sign when you're picking up and being like, yay, we are neutral about this stock. You know,
I never get that. It's either you like it or you don't, is my feeling.
Right. So I don't know why you would just sort of hold on to it. But Under Armour, 2 classes of shares, both your worst performers. Those 2 are your 2 worst performers there in the S&P, down 6.4% and 4.7% respectively. Another name in the retail space that was down is L Brands.
Yeah.
Let me just see exactly what was going on there. Also, estimates cut. L Brands and Abercrombie both cut amid a holiday season where there were just a lot of promotions going on, which means margins are squeezed,
right,
and profits will likely follow suit.
So this is basically an analyst call, right, on some of the retailers.
Exactly.
I do want to mention Tesla. Keeping an eye on that. Stock was up almost 2% today, $451.50 a share, and this just has to do with starting to roll off those Model 3 sedans off the assembly line at their Shanghai plant. It's first outside the U.S. I just think this is interesting, and it's going to be one of the key metrics that investors in Tesla are going to be watching to see, because this is a big deal. It's a huge market. This is huge in that they were able to create their own wholly owned factory in Shanghai. It's a big deal. We did a story in the magazine about how quickly they were able to say, we want to do this, and then actually get it built and up and running. So we're going to have to see what happens in terms of the kind of momentum out of that plant, because this is going to be important for it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, one area that I was looking at, and if I could bring it up really quickly before we get to Dave, are the theater chains. It's going to apparently be not a very exciting box office in 2020, coming off the Golden Globe discussion last night. AMC, that stock was down 2.7% today, so people not excited about going to the movies. Let's do the VIX if we can. Volatility down a bit, 2.6%, closing at 13.65. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door. It's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey,
Dave Wilson back with us. He's got his stock of the day, and actually he had one stock, and then he quick sent us a message and said, no, I want to do something else today.
Absolutely. I mean, that happens. You know, you get a stock that takes off in early trading and then reverses direction. Out, but I'll tell you, what was down from the opening bell and stayed down is Virtusa. It's a provider of business technology services. You think cybersecurity, data analysis, digital engineering, software development, consulting, and a whole lot more. Virtusa was founded in 1996 and went public in 2007. The ticker is VRTU. Now, the company's share price chart for the past 7 years looks like a roller coaster. There was a record in November 2015, along with peaks in September 2018 and April 2019. And in between those highs, the stock tumbled as much as 70%. Now, Virtusa took another hit today after the company disclosed terms of a contract renewal with its largest customer, Citigroup. Now, data compiled by Bloomberg shows the bank accounts for 18% of revenue. Virtusa agreed to take steps that would save money for Citi in April through December. Now, if the savings don't come through as planned, the company said it would provide discounts instead. Virtusa's decision prompted Cowen to cut its rating on the stock to the equivalent of hold from buy. It also triggered the share's biggest decline since August. Virtusa down 8.6% on the day.
All right,
That's
Dave Wilson. That is a big hit. Thank you so much for your pivot to a new stock of the day.
I was practicing Copenhagen in my head.
Copenhagen. All right, we're going to get to Las Vegas.
Thank you, Dave Wilson.
In just a few minutes.
I believe that's Vegas.
Las Vegas. Patrick Little's going to be back with us. He is Senior Vice President, General Manager of Qualcomm Global Automotive. Cars always a cool thing to talk about when you talk about CES.
But it wasn't always that way. It used to be very, very different
true.
Years ago, decades ago, and it's now a big time. It's about the automotive sector. Sorry, and it's not polite to point.
No, but you did it anyway. It's fine. It's Monday. Let's get over to Bob Moon. He's got your world national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, thank you very much. And mourners in Iran mourn the death of the top general in Iran today at funeral services, and there are still high tensions between the two nations. Los Angeles prosecutors charged Harvey Weinstein today with sexual assaulting two women on successive nights during Oscars week in 2013, bringing a new case against the disgraced Hollywood mogul on the eve of jury selection for his New York trial. The case, brought by a task force set up by the Los Angeles County District Attorney to handle sex crime allegations against major entertainment figures, now puts Weinstein in deep legal peril on both coasts. At the same time, just when Harvey Weinstein and his legal team are gearing up to defend him against sexual assault charges in New York. And the House of Representatives will vote this week on a resolution limiting President Trump's potential military actions against Iran. The president is also talking about striking cultural targets within Iran, and officials at the White House are said to be concerned that that could be a war crime under international law. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio, and we'll get back in a moment to Bloomberg Business Week with Jason Kelly and Carol Masser.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles,
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
considering possibilities,
From a credit perspective, this is good news.
planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
Boredom, fitness enemy number one. So don't just run. Run, run. Mix it up, skip, run, skip, run. Give yourself a lift. Mix it up, lift. Mix it up, run, lift, splash, skip, lift, run. It's crunch time. Skip, mix it up, run. Mix it up. Out of boxing class. Skip, run, splash, skip, run. Mix it up at Virgin Active and get stronger, fitter, faster. Join now for 12 months and pay nothing in January. T's and C's apply. Run, mix it up, skip, mix it, run. Mix it.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30-gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down, why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot.
But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in!
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. It was an up Monday, first full trading week of 2020, and an up. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. Stocks gained as heavyweight technology companies led a rebound. Treasuries and the dollar dropped. The 10-year down 3/32 yield 1.80%. But the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all rallied. A lot of those gains really coming in the final 30 minutes of trading, with the S&P 500 index picking up 11 points, a gain of 0.4% at 3246. The Dow rallied 68 points, up 0.2%. NASDAQ surging 50 points higher by 0.6%. Gold up 0.9%, $15.66 the ounce today. West Texas Intermediate crude a pullback down 0.4%, $62.82 a barrel. A Brent crude lower by 0.3% at $68.42 a barrel. So again, recapping, move higher for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. S&P up 11, a gain of 0.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on this Monday. I'm Carol Master along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
All right, so let's head out to Las Vegas, Nevada, as they call it. Patrick Little is there, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Qualcomm Global Automotive. He's there with tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people for CES, or headed there shortly. So, Patrick, tell me what's going on with Qualcomm these days, especially as it relates to tech in our cars.
Well, yeah, it's CES. It's just kicking off now. I guess it kicks off tomorrow morning. And auto is the big buzz out here in Las Vegas this week. So auto used to be an afterthought, and all of a sudden auto is the central thing out at CES. It's become the main part of the show. And so very big for Qualcomm this year is we've announced our first autonomous driving platform. We've been working on it with big customers like GM over the last few years, and finally just unveiled it in our press conference just a few minutes ago. So Bloomberg's one of the first to find out about it. It's called Snapdragon Ride, and it's basically the central computer brain inside the vehicle that's going to allow your car eventually to take on some driving functions and eventually drive itself over the coming years.
All right, so I feel like this is long awaited in many ways. Is 2020 the year that we actually see this in cars, or is it going to take a little bit longer for that robust autonomous driving experience?
Yeah, it's going to be evolutionary. So just like everything else in automotive, it won't just be one day the cars are driving themselves. I think as a society, we can't adapt that quickly. And so it's really limiting, technology is certainly evolving continuously. But what's really limiting it is our ability as humans to be able to acclimate to the changes. And so what you'll see is what you're already seeing, and that is you'll go from level 1 to level 5 autonomy, where the car will start to brake itself in certain conditions, and then it might steer itself or to keep in the lane, and then it might recognize some road signs and eventually help you on the highway, and then eventually help you in stop and go traffic. And then 10 years from now, you'll turn around and the car will be fully driving after you've acclimated to kind of each one of these use models. And that's the way passenger vehicles will evolve.
Patrick,
I think that's what will get us all used to it.
I feel like in many ways the technology is certainly there. We've seen that, right, with various automakers already in terms of self-driving cars. Tesla certainly front and center here. I guess as I'm on the car, my car can kind of drive on its own already also, but it's not a Tesla. But what's interesting is I constantly think about the infrastructure around me. I think about, messy roads or signs and things that aren't so clear that are going to complicate our move towards a fully self-driving world. So where are we on that? Who's responsible for that? Because once you start getting towns and governments and things involved, that to me says it's going to take a lot longer.
No, I think you put your finger on it. So it's easy enough in what's called a closed-loop situation for cars to be able to drive themselves. The technology is just nearly there to be able to make that happen with mobility services and robo-taxis and these things in closed-loop environments. It's the open-loop environments that you're talking about where there's potholes in the roads that aren't mapped, these types of things. And so it's evolving, continuously evolving the technology where it's able to detect these things. Which is really going to allow us to be able to run these open loop scenarios. And that's why we're graduating passenger vehicles from level 1 up until level 5 autonomy over the coming years. Another point you made was very good, and that is the infrastructure. So it won't be just the cars that are helpful in autonomy. The infrastructure itself will know a lot more. It will know where the potholes are. It will know where the traffic jams exist. And so I think it's a concert of what's going on in the car and the technology, and very similar technology in the infrastructure. And so the sad answer to it is each municipality is responsible for putting together that infrastructural approach. And some states like California and Arizona are a little bit more advanced, and there's other states that I think are falling behind. But it will be the marriage of infrastructure and the car to be able to really bring a full self-driving environment over the coming decade.
It's almost like crowdsourcing or crowdfunding. I do think about Waze and how it works. And man, I've been pulled into it where I'm like, oh yeah, I just saw a cop, or oh yeah, there's a car pulled over. Like, you start doing that. Totally. And I do wonder how much that will have to be a part of, kind of what happens in the future.
So Patrick, go ahead.
No, now you're bringing in a very important point. That's why 5G is necessary, because as Jason's car runs over a pothole or figures out that a road is closed, it can report that up to a cloud, and then it will use that crowdsourced information to inform all the vehicles across the network. So cars will no longer be isolated on their own. We're connecting all the cars together and the cars to the infrastructure, like we discussed last time I was on your show with the V2X technology.
Yeah.
So, Patrick, I'd just like to point out that you have pointed out that Carol asked really good questions, and apparently I drive over potholes. So I'm not holding it against you because you're all the way out there in Las Vegas.
I'm keeping track of it, though. I'm just telling you, Patrick.
Bro. I'm just saying she's keeping track.
Just report it.
All right. So just only about 30 seconds left, and we're going to hold you over for the next segment. But the mood, you said, pretty good out there as it relates to cars right now at CES.
Oh, it's just amazing. So CES, as I mentioned, 5 years ago, automotive was an afterthought, pushed away in one of the halls, and now it just is front and center. I can tell you, Qualcomm, we did 7 or 8 press releases. 7 of the 8 were all about automotive and autonomy and different services that we're offering now. So automotive has really become the center of what's going on in the buzz at CES, and more true than this year.
Right. All right. Stick around with us, Patrick Little, Senior Vice President, General Manager, Qualcomm Global Automotive. We're going to hang around with you a bit more, get your sense of what's going on in the ground. Also talk a little 5G and some of the other exciting things going on at Qualcomm.
I believe that was 3 good questions or 3 good points by me,
and me apparently driving over potholes.
Yeah, I'll help you with the driving.
Thank
if
you.
Need some help.
That'd be great.
Assist.
Yeah, you drive so much.
I do, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I love driving. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks reversed early losses to close modestly higher as cooler heads prevailed amid rising Mideast tensions. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed 69, the S&P 500 rose 11, the Nasdaq Composite added 51. Pink slips are going out at Pier 1 Imports. Sources say it's planning to dismiss about 40% of its headquarters staff, roughly 300 people, and canceling orders as it works to overhaul its business. Yum Brands is putting burgers on the menu. The parent of Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC is buying Habit restaurants for $375 million. Habit sells char-grilled burgers, ahi tuna sandwiches, and milkshakes from about 300 locations. Movie theater chains may face a rough year ahead. A report from MKM Partners sees a lack of must-see films following a year with 4 such titles. Streaming video will also take a toll. MKM sees a 4% decline in box office revenue this year. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on